For all you elk hunters out there, chasing turkeys is basically the same thing. I know the reaction you just gave me, but don't knock it till you try it, and don't try it without OnX. The Hunt app will not only help you find new areas on public ground, but I use it to find out landowner info to get permission on private ground that I see birds on as well. OnX Hunt has a special offer for you. Use code CAL to receive 20% off your membership at onxmaps.com/hunt and find more birds this spring.
There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store, or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today. I'm sure a lot of you guys remember the old ceremonial hunting tradition of eating the heart out of the first animal you kill. Meat from those organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. You can get those same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And remember, use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase.
From MeatEater's World News Headquarters in Bozeman, Montana, this is Cal's Weekend Review presented by Steel. Steel products are available only at authorized dealers. For more, go to steeldealers.com. Now, here's your host, Ryan Cal Callahan.
A Canadian hunter bagged a 3-legged bull elk last month that probably meant more to him than it would have to most. That's because Brock McDonald of British Columbia is also missing a leg. McDonald told local media that he lost his right leg working on an oil rig after it got caught in a chain. He was lifted 25 feet in the air, and the leg was ripped from his body.
Looks like meat's back on the menu, boys.
That sounds like just about the worst way a fella can lose a leg, but it doesn't seem to have slowed him down all that much. His Facebook page shows him out in the woods with his family, and he's posted photos posing with elk, whitetail, mountain lions, and moose. But his latest elk seems like it was destined for him. He says the elk's back right leg had been removed at the joint, but that it was totally healed. Real random, because I am missing a leg as well, he posted on Facebook. You know how they say that dogs and dog owners start looking like one another after a while? I wonder if the same is true of hunters and game animals. If I'm going after an old, grumpy whitetail that doesn't like to leave its bed, maybe I should start acting grumpy and lazy. Just to, get in his head. You know what I'm saying. This week, we've got tigers, black bears, lions, and elk, but first I'm going to tell you about my week. And my week was great. Hitched up the old tin teepee, aka the Black Series camper, and hit the snow and ice-covered road to deer hunt with my girlfriend. Temps were in the single digits, and a lovely 15-mile-per-hour breeze was blowing, which always makes me grateful for good gear. I've been product testing 2024 First Light apparel, jackets, pants, gloves, plus a couple of special items I can't talk about.
All right, then, keep your secrets.
I feel like I get colder easier these days, a trend that started after I came down with Lyme's disease about 5 years ago, and I just can't recommend the current First Light lineup enough. We're kicking butt on this stuff. Catalyst Foundry pant is definitely worth a look, and if you're spending time behind the spotting scope, you just can't leave home without the Uncompahgre puffy pants. This is a synthetic insulated overpant for insulation at the glassing knob. Stay comfortable, find more deer, which we did. However, when the one mule deer buck that sauntered within 240 yards of us stopped beautifully broadside, the girlfriend declared, "He's really good looking. I want to shoot him next year." To which I replied, "You know that 2-track we passed? I'm pretty sure I can get the truck really close to that deer if you were to shoot it." But the mind was made up. Lastly, before we hit the long and lonesome road back home, I took a little pheasant walk with old Snort, thinking for sure our rooster luck would be amazing with the fresh fallen snow. But these Montana birds are sly and extra wild now. They've been pressured, and when they get up, if they get up, they do not cackle. So it's got to be a clear visual identification of the bird. And when they do fly, they are already at high gear. There's no slow rise anymore.
What about breakfast?
We've already had it.
We've had one, yes. What about second breakfast?
So, after covering a couple of square miles in a cat's cradle of Onyx tracks, we flushed one rooster. Just prior to this, a pair of high-flying sharptail soared overhead en route to destination unknown. Armed with the new 20-gauge Weatherby side-by-side, I pulled up, swung, found my lead, and folded the first bird with the first trigger, the second bird with the second trigger, and Snort retrieved the deader-than-a-wedge pair two-hand, at which point I felt as if I was a master shotgunner on like some driven bird hunt somewhere. The beauty of that pair of birds and pair of shots would surely be recounted by all hunters in front of a roaring fireplace that evening at some estate that we would have been at. Then, back to reality, when we walked no more than 40 yards farther, Snort working her fuzzy little arse off, bird dogging an invisible track. She put up a rooster right in my face, and I shaved his tail feathers with the first trigger, adjusted my lead, and still managed to miss far behind the bird with my second trigger. The warm lodge thoughts disappeared, and the cheek-stinging, nose-dripping eastern Montana wind remained. That's reality, and it still hurts.
Folk in those stories had lots of chances of turning back, only they didn't. They kept going because they were holding on to something.
Well, better get on with the news. By the time you hear this, just so you know, I'll be beat up from another mule deer hunt full of steep, frozen mountains and, another year older. Good luck out there in the bird, deer, and elk woods. I'll need it too. Moving on to the accident desk. We cover hunting accidents pretty frequently on this here podcast, not because hunting is especially dangerous, but as a kind of educational exercise. One of the things I've noticed about many of these stories is that the accident doesn't happen in the field, it happens back at the car or in the hunting lodge or while packing out an animal. We let our guard down, and that's when tragedy strikes. For example, a 50-year-old Minnesota man was shot in the rear end last month by a 10-year-old girl he'd taken deer hunting. They weren't successful, and when they returned to the truck, he instructed the girl to unload the rifle. He turned his back on that situation, and when he did so, the girl accidentally pulled the trigger. The gun sent a .270 Winchester round through both of the man's buttocks, according to the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. The man was transported by ambulance to a hospital in Bemidji before being airlifted to a hospital in Fargo due to the seriousness of his injuries. Another incident took place in Minnesota last month that also involved a juvenile. A 45-year-old man was shot by his 12-year-old daughter after the girl shot a deer. The DNR doesn't offer much additional detail, but I'm guessing there was some kind of celebration after the girl's successful shot on the deer, which is a wild guess. She was probably just unloading her rifle, too. At the very least, I'm sure everyone was excited and maybe not too concerned about following the 4 rules of gun safety. During that time, the girl pulled the trigger again and shot her father in the leg. They called other family members for help, and one of them put a tourniquet on the leg while they waited for first responders. The man was taken to the hospital for treatment. I have not seen any update on his condition. That also reminds me, if you go out into the field with a firearm, be sure you've taken some kind of medical training for treating gunshot wounds. A Stop the Bleed class is very short, and it will teach you how to use a tourniquet and about other ways to keep as much of that red stuff inside you as possible. It's not a long class, like I said, but it can come in handy if, God forbid, your daughter accidentally shoots you in the leg or the behind. In another accident that occurred in the field, 18-year-old Joe Salmon was shot last month while hunting waterfowl in northwest Iowa. While the incident is still under investigation, local media reports that Salmon was shot in the back of the head and he was put into a medically induced coma because 2 of the BBs were too deep to safely remove. Fortunately, according to an update on his GoFundMe page, Salmon has started his long road to recovery. He was taken off sedation on October 22, and doctors have observed him moving his legs, hands, and eyes. A head x-ray came back showing no signs of brain aneurysms, but he's still unable to breathe on his own. If you live in the Okoboji area, you may have heard of Salmon's name before. He's a member of the Okoboji High School football team. But he was also in the news earlier this year when he saved the life of an 83-year-old man and his dog. He was ice fishing with his mother on East Okoboji Lake when he saw a Jeep break through the ice and start to sink. He was able to shatter the car's back window and get both the man and the dog to safety. Moving on to the bear desk. Employees at a nature center in North Carolina are scratching their heads after 2 of their white-tailed deer were killed by a wild black bear. Asheville's WNC Nature Center announced on Facebook that Becca and Curly, a doe and a buck, were found dead in their exhibit. Quote, though there are still some unanswered questions, it would appear that a wild black bear entered their exhibit and either directly or indirectly caused their passing. It's unclear how a bear could have killed the deer indirectly, but it's safe to assume it wasn't by telling them jokes.
I don't know half of you half as well as I should like, and I like less than half of you half as well as you deserve.
The Nature Center says black bears have been observed in the vicinity of this exhibit prior to this, so presumably the deer were at least somewhat acclimated to seeing bears through their fence. Employees also told local media that they're taking actions to deter wild animals from breaking through the fence, so the bear was clearly in the enclosure at some point. The perimeter fence has been improved and secured, as have the barn doors. The animals are also being housed in the barn at night as an extra precaution. If you ever wonder where deer are taken after they're scooped up as fawns or rescued from dog cages, it's often to places like this. Becca was 10 years old and was brought to the center as a fawn because she was too young to survive on her own. Curly was 11 years old, and he came to the center in 2020 after being kept as a pet. The center says this is the first time anything like this has ever happened. Thanks to listener Spencer Cook for sending us this story. A California condor was treated for lead poisoning last month after wildlife officials say it ate from the carcass of an elk that had been poached using lead ammunition. California condors are an endangered species of vulture native to North America. The birds became extinct in the wild in 1987, but many organizations have been working to restore the animals to their historic range. One of those organizations is the Yurok tribe, and they say a routine health check revealed 5 birds that had concerning levels of lead in their blood. One of those birds had ingested enough lead to warrant treatment. While that bird is set to be released into the wild again soon, tribal officials say they believe an elk poacher is to blame for the incident. They say the elk was shot sometime in early October, but from what I can tell, the hunt in this area ends on September 28th. Not only that, but California banned the use of lead ammunition for hunting across the entire state. Biologists were unable to find any large fragments of lead in the bird's digestive tract, but they say it's possible the bird consumed dust-sized particles left behind by the bullet. To add insult to this injury, this was apparently this bird's first ever meal in the wild. Welcome to the real world, kid. It's tough out here. As for the lead versus non-lead projectile debate, California condors is where the rubber meets the road for us hunters. This is the species where if one dies, that can be a population level effect, and we don't want that to happen from a hunter's bullet. And I'm sure you don't want to be forced to choose non-toxic hunting ammunition in your state, which is why we got to follow the rules, or else we can stand to lose our choice in certain situations. For all you elk hunters out there, chasing turkeys is basically the same thing. I know the reaction you just gave me, but don't knock it till you try it, and don't try it without OnX. The Hunt app will not only help you find new areas on public ground, but I use it to find out landowner info to get permission on private ground that I see birds on as well. OnX Hunt has a special offer for you. Use code CAL to receive 20% off your membership at onxmaps.com/hunt and find more birds this spring.
Now, a lot of you guys are familiar with the old hunting tradition of eating, some organ, the heart or a chunk of liver off the first animal you kill. I had that when I was a little kid, and it was a big deal. Organ meats were always prized by frontier people who knew the importance of getting a lot of different minerals and nutrients. And as often is the case, those guys were onto something, because organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. And you can get the same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil made exclusively from regeneratively raised, grass-fed, and finished cattle. Heart and Soil's unique freeze-drying process means all those important nutrients are trapped in, ensuring you experience every one of the benefits of nature's superfood in a clean, convenient, taste-free capsule. Find out more at heartandsoil.co and make sure to use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase. That's heartandsoil.co. Use the code MeatEater.
We've all seen plenty of gadgets and fads come and go, but here's one product that stood the test of time: Seafoam Motor Treatment. Lots of hunters and anglers know that Seafoam helps engines run better and last longer. It's really simple. When you pour it in your gas tank, Seafoam cleans harmful fuel deposits that cause engine problems. I'm talking common stuff like hard starts, rough engine performance, or lost fuel economy. Seafoam is an easy way to prevent or overcome these problems. Just pour a can in your gas tank and let it clean your fuel system. You probably know someone who has used a can of Seafoam to get their truck or boat going again. I guarantee you've listened to them because I use it, regularly. People everywhere rely on Seafoam to keep their trucks, boats, and small engines running the way they should the entire season. Help your engine run better and last longer. Pick up a can of Seafoam today at your local auto parts store or visit seafoamworks.com to learn more. Moving on to the Elk Desk. Another grisly scene played out last month in Wyoming, where a pickup truck plowed into a herd of elk and caused what one official described as a Sunday morning elk massacre. The incident occurred on Highway 120 near Meeteetse. The heavy-duty Ram 3500 pickup truck slammed into the herd around 7 a.m. and may have killed as many as 7 elk. 4 were dead on the road, and another 3 had to be euthanized due to their injuries. Incredibly, the driver of the truck was unharmed, though the truck is likely totaled. The driver was unable to stop or miss the animals because he was coming around a curve with guardrails on both sides of the road. The herd stretched from guardrail to guardrail, so it was either hit the animals or plow into the guardrail and down the embankment. While Wyoming has several new and ongoing wildlife crossing projects in the works, officials told the Cowboy State Daily that they don't have any plans to build one along that stretch of road. That's unfortunate because they also admit that it's a well-known spot for wildlife collisions. They usually aren't quite this bad, but a collision with even a single animal can be deadly for humans and, of course, the critters too. Wyoming Game and Fish reports that there are an average of 6,000 vehicle collisions with big game every year in the state, resulting in $23 million in wildlife costs and $29 million in personal injury costs. Massacres aside, elk aren't actually the main culprits. 85% of the vehicle-animal collisions are with mule deer, and vehicle collisions are responsible for up to 4% of the entire population every year. This is especially bad news for the Wyoming mule deer herd on this type of year because it's a recovery year in the western part of the state. The herd's been on a sharp decline in recent years in general. Hunters don't usually take much more than cars do. In 2021, for example, about 19,000 mule deer were harvested from the total estimated population of 330,000, or about 5.8%. In other words, be careful on the roads for you, your car, other drivers, and the critters who still can't figure out why we like riding around in those giant metal machines. Moving on to the crime desk. A few weeks ago, we covered several cases of cocaine being discovered by fishermen in the sea, but now I'm here to tell you about another illicit trade, something called cocaine of the sea. The difference might sound subtle, but it's really not. Cocaine of the sea isn't actually cocaine. Instead, it's endangered fish organs, specifically the swim bladders of Tatoba, which is a type of drum endemic to the Gulf of California and Mexico. The reason I'm talking about this is because the customs officials in Arizona recently conducted their second largest seizure to date of these swim bladders. They seized 91 bladders weighing about 109 pounds, which would fetch between $910,000 and $1.4 million on the black market. If my math is correct, that means each bladder is worth about $15,000. As with other high-dollar animal parts poached from the U.S., such as bear paws and gallbladders, Tatoba swim bladders are used in traditional Chinese medicine. They are high in collagen, and some believe they can boost fertility and improve circulation and skin vitality. This is a serious problem because, unlike black bears, totoba are endangered. They're on the endangered species list in the U.S., and possession, transport, and sale of any part of this fish is prohibited. Poachers were trying to smuggle the bladders in a shipment of frozen fish fillets, but they were caught by U.S. Customs and Border Protection officers. Law enforcement has been on the lookout. Just a few months ago, Customs officials made the largest totoba bladder seizure in Arizona history and the second largest in U.S. history, a haul worth a whopping $2.7 million. Officials haven't provided much additional detail on the outfit in charge of this smuggling operation, but it's likely similar to another poaching ring that got busted in 2013. A businessman in Sacramento was arrested along with a Mexicali resident who appeared to be the one actually doing the fishing. The businessman acted as the middleman and paid the fisherman to steal and transport the fish. He would then sell the bladders with a significant markup to his overseas customers. I wouldn't be surprised if a similar thing is happening here. Jumping over to the lion desk. A new study published in the journal Scientific Reports has uncovered evidence for the first time that Neanderthals hunted and consumed cave lions. Neanderthals are an extinct subspecies of human that lived between 400,000 and 40,000 years ago, when Homo sapiens, that's us, more or less took over. They lived across Europe and Southwest and Central Asia, and, as your girlfriend occasionally suggests, they are closely related to the folks you see running around today. In fact, your girlfriend will be unsurprised to know that some people have inherited around 2% Neanderthal DNA.
Fool of a took. Throw yourself in next time and rid us of your stupidity.
Anyway, we've known that cave lions and Neanderthals overlapped for thousands of years, but until now, we didn't know which species was predator and which was prey. The truth is that predation probably went both ways, but scientists recently unearthed cave lion bones that strongly suggest that Neanderthals hunted this apex predator. Cave lions didn't just live in caves, they were the most dangerous animal in Eurasia for 200,000 years, until they went extinct at the end of the Ice Age. The larger specimens stood about 4 feet high at the shoulders, which is about as tall as a grizzly bear, and they were likely about 10% larger than today's African lions. They hunted larger herbivores such as mammoth, bison, and horse, as well as cave bear. I'd also be very surprised if they never added a little Neanderthal to their diet. Neanderthals did the same, according to this study. A toe bone was found in a cave in Germany, and the cut marks indicate that the animal was skinned with its claws attached. This suggests to the researchers that Neanderthals used cave lions as a source of goods and materials. They set out to find whether the human subspecies preyed on lions directly. They analyzed a cave lion rib bone found in Bavaria on which they detected some unusual damage. They were able to determine that the bone had likely been damaged by the point of a spear that was thrust into the lion while it was lying down. The rib lesions clearly differs from bite marks of carnivores and shows the typical breakage pattern of a lesion caused by a hunting weapon, remarked one of the researchers. I suppose it's possible that an excitable Neanderthal stuck a spear into a lion that had already died, but that seems unlikely-ish. The study demonstrates that the spear penetrated deeply into the lion's vital area, which indicates that whoever was wielding the weapon knew where the vitals were. What's more, the tissue fracture exhibits a degree of elasticity that suggests that the damage occurred perimortem, which means at or near the time of death. Once these Neanderthal hunters killed the lion, other cut marks on its skeleton suggest that they butchered it for meat. That's right. States like Colorado and Washington, when you're talking about people hunting carnivores, it's been going on for a while, and it's good meat. The Neanderthals, with whom we share a common ancestor, would have a thing or two to say about what modern people say we can or can't eat.
Give it to us, raw and wriggling.
Moving on to the tiger desk. We've covered bears and lions, so, you saw this coming. Wildlife officials and law enforcement officers in Rowan County, North Carolina, are looking for a tiger that may be wandering the area near the town of Rockwell. A grainy trail cam photo shows what looks for all the world like a tiger. It has the right tail and the right stripes, and the local media confirmed that there is a tiger sanctuary in the area. Fortunately for the good residents of Rockwell, the sanctuary says that all of its tigers are accounted for. The sheriff's office also looked into it, and they say that none of the registered tigers in the area have been reported missing. But they're still taking the potential sighting seriously. In what has to be beyond the job description for a local sheriff's deputy, several officers have walked the wooded area near where the supposed tiger was seen. I can't say I'd volunteer to go wandering around a forest where a tiger might be waiting at the top of a tree, but that's why I'm not a sheriff's deputy. Good work, everyone. Anyway, they said they found no evidence of a tiger, they didn't see any tracks or scat, and they didn't hear any tiger vocalizations. The leading theory is that the picture shows a tabby cat. It's tough to say how large the animal is without any sense of scale, and some domestic cats do have markings similar to tigers. For now, it looks like the residents of Rockwell are safe, but I'll, keep you in the loop if things look differently out there. That's all I've got for you this week. Thank you so much for listening. Remember to write in to ASKCAL, that's AskCal at themeateater.com, and let me know what's going on in your neck of the woods. On top of that, go to www.steeldealers.com, find a local knowledgeable steel dealer near you. They'll get you set up with what you need, and they won't try to send you home with what you don't. Thanks again, and I'll talk to you next week.
I'm sure a lot of you guys remember the old ceremonial hunting tradition of eating the heart out of the first animal you kill. Meat from those organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. You can get those same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And remember, use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase.
Outdoor adventure won't wait for engine problems. Things like hard starts, rough performance, and lost fuel economy are often caused by fuel gum and varnish buildup. Seafoam can help your engine run better and last longer. Simply pour a can in your gas tank. Hunters and anglers rely on Seafoam to keep their engines running the way it should the entire season. Pick up a can of Seafoam today at your local auto parts store or visit seafoamworks.com to learn more. That's seafoamworks.com to learn more.